What's up there, sports fans? My name is Ryan Kostrowski. This is Wisconsin Sports Talk. We're going to get into the Bucks again. We've been talking a lot of Bucks since the channel started. Big reason for that, we're slam jam right in the middle of NBA season. We got the playoffs coming up in a little over a month from now. Can't wait. Milwaukee's got the best record in the NBA. I can't even tell you when the last time this happened. For all I know, this doesn't even happen on my time on this earth. So it's definitely been a long time since Milwaukee has been viewed as like a legit threat, a legit title contender. Now, again, first video we did on this channel, we talked about how they could be a threat to the Warriors, but the Warriors are still the clear-cut #1 favorite. Please don't get me wrong. It's the Warriors here, and until somebody else proves it, everybody else, even the best record in the NBA, Milwaukee, is going to be lower than that. So let's get into what I think our odds are of coming out of the East, how we stack up against some of the other opponents. If you had to ask me, like percentage-wise, what are the odds you think Milwaukee comes out of the East this year? I'd say about 40%. You know what I mean? Like close to a coin flip, but not quite there. Somewhere there between like a third and a half. Because we have competition. We've had the best record from the get-go. I firmly believe we're the best team. We have the best players, so there's a lot of things to like. But there are other teams in the East this year that are pretty darn good in their own right. So it is not a lock at all. And we'll get into why that is. All right, guys. Episode 9, though. We are moving along and moving on nicely. If you would like to do a very, very kind thing and help spread me around the YouTube world, the thumbs up, it's real simple. Just go click that bad boy, like this video. It does help me, rate the videos better, get farther along the lines, help me grow this channel. And if you want more videos based on Wisconsin sports, Bucks, Brewers, and Packers, hit that red button that says subscribe. A little bit about who I am, guys. If you don't already know, Green Bay born and raised. Lived the majority of my life here in Wisconsin. I did leave for Vikings country for about 10 years to attend college at the University of Minnesota, but I never wavered, guys. Always been a Wisconsin sports fan. In fact, it only made me hate the Vikings more. I do daily fantasy sports analyst. I started a company called the DFS 5-Pack where we evaluate baseball, football, and basketball for people who play on DraftKings or FanDuel. That's something you do. Go check that one out. All right, so it's been a fun season so far. We're about 3/4 of the way in. Milwaukee has been the best team in the NBA from the jump. Best record, I think, legitimately the entire season because they started out winning, I think, their first 7 or 8 games. It's been a lot of fun to watch, but now we are getting into the money time of the year. Everybody's banged up a little bit. We got the playoffs approaching. You're trying to jockey for seed at this point. And we kind of, at this point of the year, we know who's who. And we know what's up, and we know who are legit contenders to, win a playoff series, win 2 playoff series, things like that. Let's get into it and break it down a little bit further. So we move over to the standings in the Eastern Conference right now. And what it really comes down to for me, when you look down through the 6 through 9, the Magic, the Pistons, the Nets, and the Hornets, like these aren't bad teams, but there is a major discrepancy between the top 5 seeds and the bottom 3 seeds. Whoever makes it, whether it's the Hornets, the Magic, Pistons, Nets, or even the Wizards and the Heat below there a little bit, it doesn't matter. None of those teams have any real legitimate opportunity to knock off any of these 5 seed teams. The one area that you want to get out of, like if you're Philly and you're sitting there in that 4 seed right now with a pretty decent 3-game lead on Boston, you want to try like hell to beat out Indiana because you don't want to be tested in round 1. The Boston Celtics have flat out owned the Philadelphia 76ers. So, I'm kind of a realist on Boston. I'm not on their jock like a lot of the national media because they are a big market and they draw a lot of attention. I'm not a Boston lover. I don't just like them because they're a big name like a lot of other people do. But they match up well with Philly, and they're in Philly's head. They own the Philadelphia 76ers. So the Sixers really, really need to push for that 3 seed, in my opinion. That would be big for them. To get a matchup with the Nets or the Pistons, so much easier than going through Boston. And again, I keep it real with Boston. I don't just, push them up there because they are a big market team. But they are much better than the 6 seed, whoever the 6 seed is going to be, significantly. That is a huge talent discrepancy. So if you're Philly, man, you got to push for that bad boy. And if you're the Pacers, you really want to hold on to that. You want to win a playoff series, and that's just the better way to do it. So it's top 5 or bust, all 5 of these top teams. And I'm hard on Boston, but they are not a bad basketball team at all. So it is top 5 or bust in the East right now. So then we have to ask ourselves, who are we kicking out of this competition first? Who is a team, in my opinion, that is the least likely to come out of the East? And I have to look towards the Indiana Pacers. Now, I'm sorry, Pacer fans. And before I tell you guys why I think they're the team least likely to move along, I'll just keep it real with Indiana, man. This team plays. And I think coaching and just the heart and the DNA of this team, I think they deserve a really long round of applause because they're overachievers. And I like a lot of their individual players. The big issue is their best players got hurt. He's out for the year, Victor Oladipo. And again, that's more of a testament to who they are as a team right now, that they're able to still continue to win games. They still have decent players. And you look at their starting five right now with Thaddeus Young, Miles Turner, Bogdanovich, Darren Collison, and now they've added Wesley Matthews into the mix. These are all good NBA players, but come playoff time, stars win, and they don't have a star. They don't have a guy that you can give the ball to in crunch time to get those baskets. I like Miles Turner, but he's more of a catch and shoot guy. Wonderful defensive player, still gets into foul trouble way too easily. I like Thaddeus Young, but Thaddeus Young can't be one of your top couple of players and expect to advance through teams like the Raptors, Sixers, and the Bucks. So again, kudos to this team because I always respect overachievers, guys who do a lot with very little. If you look at the NFL and look at guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, who are able to be some of the greatest NFL players of all time, but do it with very little athletic talent, I mean, that's really, really impressive. Now, again, the quarterback position's a little bit different, but the Pacers have overachieved for 2 straight years, and that's a testament to the coach, the organization, and the DNA imprint of this team right now. So big time kudos to them. I just don't think they're going to have the ability to hang with the bad boys of the East once playoff time comes. So next up, who are we kicking out next to try to skinny down the conversation? Everybody's preseason darling. People were talking about this being the team that was going to knock off the Warriors. Guys, it just is not the case. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, these are some nice, young, talented players, but there are a couple of second and third year players who don't really seem to have gelled as a team. This team looked better last year without Kyrie Irving. And the big difference to me is now the East is better. Even with LeBron out, the Raptors, 76ers, and Bucks all have legitimate reasons that they are significantly better than they were last year. I think if you had last year's Cavaliers with LeBron James going up against this Bucks, Raptors, or 76ers team, I don't know that they'd be getting out of the East. So whether LeBron's in LA or if he was still in Cleveland, I don't give those teams a lot of ability to make it through the East because the East is better. The Celtics, again, a lot of people in the national media love them because Boston's a big market team, big sports team. They've already got Red Sox and Patriots championships this year, but best players win the playoffs, and Boston will never have the best player unless they're playing Indiana because Joel Embiid's better than Kyrie Irving. Kawhi Leonard is better than Kyrie Irving. Giannis is a lot better than Kyrie Irving. And Kyrie Irving seems to have serious issues with how these teammates play. Now, if you want to throw Kyrie under the bus and say that Boston isn't as good with Kyrie leading the team because he doesn't pass it as well and they don't play as a team without him, I think your points are valid. I understand them. I cannot get out of my mind, though, what's going through Kyrie's head, and that is these young guys maybe got a little big for their britches in the offseason, feel themselves a little bit too much, had to be taken down a peg or two, and they're not putting in the work. I mean, there's been a very popular photo on the internet this week, which is Kyrie looking at his younger teammates the same way that LeBron used to look at Kyrie, that these guys just aren't ready to be champions. Now, we'll see what happens with Boston in the offseason. And I understand that even though I'm hard on the Celtics, this is still a team with a lot of talent. I just don't get national pundits who seem to think this team is more talented than Milwaukee, Toronto, or Philadelphia because they're just talent for talent-wise, guy for guy. They aren't. Their second best player, who is it? Tatum, Al Horford? I like both players, but they're not as good as Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris, in my opinion. Not yet. They probably will be. The ceiling for Tatum is for real, but he's still just a second-year player who's got some room to go with his consistency in overall game. So I like Boston in the sense that of what I saw from them last year, and they played well. But the same Milwaukee team that is leaps and bounds better than last year, our Bucks, way better than last year, pushed this team to 7 games. So I just don't see this team having any ability. I haven't seen the chemistry with them. Like if you look at the Bucks and the Raptors, the top 2 seeds, there's chemistry there. Those teams like to play for one another. I don't see that with this Boston team. So for me, Their odds to make it out of the East is the fourth best out of those 5 teams. So the next question has to be, who is a bigger threat to Milwaukee? Is it the 76ers or is it the Raptors? I ran a poll yesterday. Please go follow my Twitter profile for Wisconsin Sports Talk. Now, this is not a major sample size, but we got about 50% of people looking at the Raptors, 30% 76ers, 15 Celtics, 5 on the Pacers. And honestly, even though that's a small sample size, that's about what I expected, and that's about how I view it. So I do give the Toronto Raptors a little bump over the 76ers. Now, Philly's front 5 of Embiid, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, JJ Redick, and drawing a blank for a second. Embiid, Jimmy Butler. Okay, man, major brain fart there for 1 second. Is good. I'm just not quite sure they're there yet. They brought in, obviously, Harris and Butler throughout the season. This team isn't perfectly built either. I like Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons are too much alike in that they need the ball in their hands. Ben Simmons can't shoot, and Butler is only a decent three-point shooter. I don't think they quite have their pecking order and their chemistry down. Now, talent for talent, their ceiling is huge because that starting 5 is lethal. I mean, as far as just starting 5s go, they might be the second best behind the Golden State Warriors. Talent for talent, player for player. I just don't think they quite have the chemistry there quite yet. Even though the Tobias Harris signing is great for their three-point shooting, I still don't think they have quite enough because Embiid will take threes, but he is not a knockdown three-point shooter. Butler will take threes, but he is not a knockdown three-point shooter. Ben Simmons legitimately can't shoot threes. And when you match up with a team like Toronto, Boston, or Milwaukee, who can all destroy you from three-point range, it becomes really tough to trade threes for twos. So also with the signing of Marc Gasol and with Milwaukee having Brook Lopez, they both have big-bodied centers that it can at least make life on Joel Embiid a little bit difficult. So I got the Raptors as, you know, I'm siding with the public on this one. I feel like the national media and a lot of people are trending in this direction that they're viewing the Raptors and Milwaukee, who have the best 2 records, as the 2 best teams in the East and the 2 most likely to come out of there. The national love for Boston has really dissipated over the past week. We know people love to be prisoners of the moment, and the Celtics have had a rough week. So finally, people are starting to buy into that they're not the team out of the East, which, you know, I've been screaming for 30 or 40 games now. And I know a lot of other people have been saying it as well, but the national media is finally buying into it. As far as points for the Raptors, too, they generally seem to have a good game plan when they go out there. They seem to play well with one another. They seem to operate as a team, the way the Golden State Warriors used to. You're getting early senses of that kind of vibe with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Toronto Raptors, that there's really good team chemistry. Now, again, I'm not putting them on the same level as the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors are the best team I have ever seen, even better than the Michael Bulls. So no, I am not putting them up there. I want to be clear about that. But you're getting some of the same senses of chemistry and the Warriors from a couple of years ago where these teams fit well together and they play well together. So I see the Toronto Raptors as Milwaukee's biggest threat out of the Eastern Conference. Now that we've gotten there, how do these 2 teams stack up with one another? It's an important question because these are the 1 and the 2 seed. They seem to have a pretty good lock that this will be the 1 and the 2 seed. So they are going to have home court advantage. Both of these teams play really well at home. So it's going to be difficult to beat either of these teams in a 7-game series, knowing that unless you're the Bucks against Toronto, these 2 teams will have home court advantage in their first 2 rounds of the playoffs. So what happened this season? These teams made up 4 times. The season series is already completed. The Milwaukee Bucks won the season series 3-1 and did it in a pretty convincing fashion, I will say. So game 1, early on in the season, it was marked as Kawhi versus Giannis, superstar versus superstar. And then both of these teams let us down and they rested both players. So it was kind of a letdown. Excuse me. You can only take so much out of these teams from a game early in the season when one of the superstars were there. That being said, Giannis is better than Kawhi, and no Giannis should hurt the Milwaukee Bucks a little more than no Kawhi hurts the Toronto Raptors, just a little bit, because Kawhi is a great player in his own right. The Bucks won this game easy. Again, though, I don't take a lot out of it. This was early in the season. The Bucks were hot from three-point range. No Kawhi, no Marc Gasol. These are 2 totally different teams right now, so I don't read a lot into it. But obviously, anything you can take out of it, you're going to take out positively for the Milwaukee Bucks. Game 2, to me, was the best representation of who these teams are. And we'll get into games 3 and 4 here momentarily, though. Field goal percentages were very, very similar. This was a close game from the beginning of the game to the end of it. The Milwaukee Bucks had a 104-99 victory in Toronto. I think this is the best physical representation of what we can expect out of these two teams come playoff. I figure in a 7-game series, if it were to go 7, that you're going to have one blowout Bucks win at least and one blowout Toronto win. One game, one time where the other team is just on fire from 3. So then we skinny it down to a 5-game series. And I think you're very likely to see at least 3 really, really close competitive games like this. And that's where I think the Bucks are just a little bit better than Toronto. And I thought game 2, when they met up this year, was a very good representation of that. Game 3 was the one game when Toronto won. They came into Pfizer Forum. They came into Milwaukee. Had a hot shooting night. They went 14 of 31 from three-point range, which is shooting 45%. That is the modern-day NBA from you. If one team shoots really hot from 3, that's where they have a tendency to win. Giannis did everything he could to will Milwaukee to this win. Toronto was just a little better this game. They really put a beat down on Milwaukee in the third quarter. I think they had a double-digit point discrepancy in that quarter, and that's what it really came down to. They got hot from 3. They did their job. They won the game. Milwaukee is not going to sweep Toronto. They're not. Toronto is a really good team, and there's going to be at least one game in the series where the Toronto gets hot from three-point range and wins it in a not very close game. And I know 123-116 sounds close, but Toronto seemed to really be able to hold on to that 5 to 10 point lead for the majority of that game. And it wasn't like it was a 1-point game and they crushed them at the end. They had a handful of point lead for the majority of that second half. All right, game 4, Bucks have done a great job this year of never losing to the same team twice, and this was a great display. They went back up to the Great White North, and they handled Toronto. This, to me, was where I think Milwaukee and a lot of the NBA public doesn't quite get this yet. The Milwaukee defense is beyond elite. It is a number 1 rated defense in the association, and in crunch time, one of the reasons Milwaukee has a great record in close games is because they D up in crunch time. We saw it again the other day. Kings mounted a great comeback against Milwaukee, had an opportunity to take a walk-off shot, didn't even get a shot off because of Eric Bledsoe's elite defense at the point guard position. Milwaukee really shut down Toronto and played great defense in both games in Toronto this year. In the playoffs, there is no back-to-back games. So you get a full effort every day. There is no prepping for the day after or anything like that. And that's where Milwaukee is a cut above. Their defense is underrated still at this point. I don't think a lot of the NBA public realizes that Milwaukee has the number 1 defense. And in crunch time, it shows. It really, really shows. It's where I feel like we can hang our hat come playoff time. So to dive into the matchups a little bit of the individual players and the positions and where I feel like this series can be made. Again, these are 2 very good teams, and it's very, very close. So let's start at the point guard position. Now, in a vacuum, because of all of his all-star appearances and because of the fact he's a flashy shooter, I do think the majority of the NBA public would tell you that Kyle Lowry is better than Eric Bledsoe. And in a regular season vacuum, I'm okay with that statement. I don't really want to sit here and argue it. However, if you've ever heard them talk on ESPN, I know Max Kellerman likes to allude to this a lot, styles make fights. Eric Bledsoe's defense gives him an advantage in this specific situation. He has had a long career of really going ham on Kyle Lowry. This year, Kyle Lowry against the Bucks is 7 of 30 from the field. He's had a lot of struggles to get quality shots off. And not only is Eric Bledsoe an elite defender, backup point guard George Hill is also an elite defender, which is really going to put the Raptors in a situation where that is an advantage for Milwaukee right here. And Lowry has struggled in the playoffs. Now, again, Bledsoe struggled last year against Boston. Was that a playoff thing or was that a Boston thing? I don't know yet. I got to see how he plays this year. And Fred VanVleet right now is a little better than George Hill, but George Hill brings that veteran presence. So at the point guard position, talent-wise, Toronto's a little bit ahead, but specifically for this matchup, I do give the Bucks a subtle bump in this area. But again, very, very, very subtle. I just don't think that Kyle Lowry matches up well with Eric Bledsoe for how that they're going to play. All right, if we move over to the shooting guard position, we got Malcolm Brogdon against Danny Green. Malcolm Brogdon is a significantly better complete basketball player than Danny Green. Danny Green does give you that puncher's chance, though, because when he gets hot from three-point range, he can be a game changer for the Toronto Raptors. Whereas Malcolm Brogdon is really never allowed to like go off to the point that he is that major game changer. They used this term for him early this week. Like, he's the ultimate glue guy. He plays good defense. He's a 90, 50, 40 guy, which means he shoots 90% from free throw line, 50% from the floor, and 40% from three. He hits big clutch shots. Danny Green could be the reason Toronto wins one game. He's also playoff tested with all his time with the Spurs. We saw Danny Green come up big a couple of those Spurs Miami Heat games. So he does have that in him somewhere. I don't know if he's going to get the usage to really show that in a playoff game, but we know deep down inside, Danny Green does have that puncher's chance that he could account for a Toronto victory if he were to get red hot from three. All right, let's move over to the forwards position. Now, I kind of wanted to muddle them up together because like guys like Siakam, Kawhi, and Giannis, they're all small forward, power forward. So let's just take a look at the forward positions where we have double all-stars here for the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Money Middleton going up against Pascal Siakam and Kawhi Leonard. Both of these teams are very strong at the forward position. The Bucks have a small advantage here, though, too. Giannis is arguably the best player in the game right now. We got Giannis taking on LeBron tonight in LA, if you're catching the show early on. This could be a passing of the torch game, although I'm not sure what Giannis's role is going to be since we've seen them handle him with kids' gloves lately. So either way, though, come playoff time, that's not really a concern. And Giannis is better than Kawhi. Not by leaps and bounds. Kawhi is a very good basketball player. They're both two of the best defenders in the entire game. Giannis is just a force that can't be reckoned with. Kawhi is very fundamentally sound, but Giannis is better. And then when we get down to Middleton and Siakam, Chris Middleton, I like what he can bring to the table come playoff time. He's a big shot hitter. He can create his own shot when needed to be. When things get tight defensively, Chris Middleton is an excellent one-on-one basketball player. He's got the turnaround. He can go over either shoulder. He can create his own shot. You can give it to him in an ISO situation. I like Pascal Siakam a lot, and he might be the most improved player in basketball this season. I think Kawhi Leonard rubbed off on him in a very positive way. I'm a big Pascal Siakam fan. For those of you guys who watch me for Daily Fantasy Sports, you guys know I'm a Siakam guy. And Siakam could do some damage, but overall, the Giannis-Middleton combination is better than Kawhi-Siakam. Not by great leaps and bounds, but it is better. So an advantage is right here for the Milwaukee Bucks, albeit, though, a subtle one. All right, so let's move on over to the big men, where the Toronto Raptors and Siakam and Giannis both. I mean, these are both guys who also, could be moved into the power forward role and count as big men, but we talked about them under forwards. The Toronto Raptors run out Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka versus the three-man big man group of the Milwaukee Bucks of Brook Lopez, Nikola Mirotic, pardon the misspelling, and Ersan Ilyasova. This is a situation where, again, it's really close, but I'm going to give the Raptors have an advantage here by a slim margin. Gasol gives Toronto a guy that could be a potential X factor for them, a guy that can protect the rim. We can see how he intertwines with this team as they continue to develop his role. He's an older player. He's not quite as good as he was a few years ago, but he's a former defensive player of the year. He's an excellent passer out of the post. He's a decent three-point shooter. So we'll continue to see how he is incorporated within this team, but he is a good add for them. And he's not as good as he was a few years ago, but he's still a very quality NBA player. And he's going to help Toronto come playoff time in those half-court sets. Serge Ibaka has played really well against Milwaukee the last couple of years. So he's another guy. He's a bit of an X factor for the Toronto Raptors as well. Now, the Bucks have very underrated big men. Brook Lopez was kind of left by the wayside for a few years. He was in some bad situations for bad teams that really weren't featuring him, knowing that he was an older player. He has been a godsend for the Milwaukee Bucks this year. His ability to spread the floor, play defense, help out on the rebounding end of things has been great for Milwaukee. And in a vacuum, Marc Gasol is still better than Brook Lopez. But what Lopez gives to Milwaukee is actually more important than what Gasol is going to bring to the Raptors. So, if given the ability, I would take Marc Gasol over Brook Lopez still. But what Lopez brings to Milwaukee is equally as important, if not more so. That floor spreading that him and Mirotic and Ersan can add to let Giannis and Bledsoe and Brogdon get to the rack, it absolutely cannot go understated. Milwaukee has three of the best drivers of the ball in basketball. Giannis is the best. Nobody can keep him out of the paint. Bledsoe and Brogdon can both get to the rim, pretty much at will. Bledsoe is strong and fast. Brogdon is probably one of the craftiest drivers of the basketball in the NBA. And when you can put Lopez, Mirotic, and Ersan out there to spread the floor and let these guys have at it, these were really intelligent signings on Milwaukee's part. And it is the biggest reason, along with the addition of Coach Bud, of why Milwaukee looks like a brand new team, despite not a major roster overhaul. Coaching makes a difference, and adding big men to spread the floor has been understated within the national media of how important it is. So throw in Ersan's ability to take charges in key situations. I give the bump here to Toronto, but much like I gave the bump to Milwaukee in the other areas, it's a subtle bump. These are two really good basketball teams that the matchups here are interesting. Where I think Milwaukee gains its top advantage, I think our defense will have an easier time stopping men from scoring than I think their defense will be able to stop us. Milwaukee is too loaded with shooters. If once the offense or the defense breaks down on Giannis attacking the rim, there's a reason that Antetokounmpo leads the NBA in assists on three-point shots by a really big margin, is because they've done a great job this year of building a team around him that is nothing but three-point shooters. This is what I've been saying the Oklahoma City Thunder should have been doing with Russell Westbrook for the past couple of years since Kevin Durant left. Yes, have one alpha on the team and then supply him with a bunch of B players who can shoot the basketball, and you're going to watch this team take off. This is what Milwaukee has done, and it's the reason that they have the best record in the NBA. So that's how I see it, guys. I see the Bucks winning this one in 6 or 7 games. I think Toronto will put up a really good fight. I think they'll be a very worthy adversary. But if I had to, bet my kids' lives on it, that's what I would do. I would say Milwaukee wins this in 6 or 7 games. They'll steal one in Milwaukee, and we'll steal 1 or 2 of them in Toronto. It'll be close, but 6 or 7 games, Milwaukee wins. Go Bucks. If you have not done it yet, guys, I would appreciate y'all subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys soon.